Fine. I welcome Manan Mitra for this podcast. He is a senior research associate at viral testing facility at Syngene International Limited. Now, I welcome him to this podcast because we will now be discussing about the present scenario and who will be the toughest survivor. Is it a virus or else is it a human being who is trying to fight it? And I welcome Manan Mitra sir for this podcast.
Oh, good evening, Vishwas. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Let's just jump right to the question. So, yeah, there has been a lot of things where human genome has involved, and like even if we just took our ancestors into the consideration, there was something called as genetic information which was being transferred at any given point of time. But I feel that there is nothing called as an demystification which has been done in order to understand what that genetic information was all about. So my question is, where is the source of knowledge of human genome, and now biotechnology has influenced it? So how is that influence of these studies helping us in surviving in this present pandemic, according to you?
The source of information, as you said, I was started in 1980s by a certain project called the Human Genome Project, right? So it started off as a international kind of venture to like to sequence the entire genome of the human. Like the first I think the first entire genome that was kind of was sequence was of a bacteria, which kind of evolved into the quest to first what do I say, like sequence the human genome. So it took about 20 years, and as technology progressed, the space and the hunger to sequence the genome also increased. I guess they were done by 2003, if I'm not wrong. I think it's 2003. Yeah, they were done by that time, and they were able to sequence the entire genome. And today, as you see, it took the budget, the proposed budget when they were starting were about $3 billion, which was kind of a massive amount, right? Because the sequences at that time wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. Like currently, I mean, at the lab that I was working in, a simple gene can be sequenced at mere 700 rupees, and the entire genome apparently can be sequenced in $1,000, which is quite cheap considering the initial 3 billion price tag. Yeah. So the impact is kind of like massive, as in it has played a massive role in many aspects. The simplest one is the point mutations, right? Like many diseases are genetically inherited. I mean, many for example, the hemoglobinopathies like sickle cell anemia as such, those are caused by the single cell mutations. So to identify the mutations, you'd have to have a reference genome. I mean, there is a kind of a change. There's a change in the single, like you sequence a particular gene. That's relatively easy. You receive a gene, but how would you like particularly see look, there's a change in this gene, but how do I know if there's a change? It's by referencing this reference genome. That's what this human genome project has done. So apart from that, there are other diseases like Alzheimer's. Like many people have kind of found out that certain women, certain people who have a particular difference in a gene subtype are more susceptible to this disease. I mean, yeah. And then women with who take oral contraceptives have having a particular immune particular mutation in their thrombosis factor are more susceptible to brain hemorrhage during these medications. So there's these human. This project has kind of particularly thrown light on this matter. So I think it has it has it has helped in these things.
Yeah, there is a lot of things which protein has played a major role. Protein is a building block of life. But what's the building block of an virus at the end of the day? Because I know proteins help us in getting the right immunity, building us as a person. You know, bodybuilders eat it. quite humongous in order to build their mass up. It's a simple thing. It's just a game of food today. But like, what's the actual building block of a virus at the end of the day?
You see, in case of virus, it's still proteins. It's still proteins. The thing is, the virus, it doesn't have its own machinery. It only has an mRNA. It has an mRNA. So a virus has a sneaky tactic of hijacking its host's machinery. So what it does is it basically enters a host cell. It injects its genetic material, which is oftentimes an RNA. I mean, there are certain DNA viruses, but they are kind of rare. And they kind of instruct the host machinery to build the like desired proteins in order to replicate inside the host machinery. So what it does is, even in a virus's case, it's still proteins. It's just that it's not its own proteins, right? It uses the proteins of its victim to get its means met, right? So I hope that answers your question.
Protein at the end of the day, it's a whole new different deal. There are ways in which even trying to simulate it on a dish has never been possible because spike protein has never been demystified at the end of the day. What is that spike protein which is actually building that structure of, it's a trimer at the end of the day. It requires three replicates of the protein structure at the end of the day. But now when you think of spike protein, which has been affecting every host cell where it gets in, what do you think this spike protein has been demystified, or else it's not been demystified, the biologists or the informaticians who are in the world?
Uh, well, I haven't worked with spike proteins a lot, so I don't think I will be able to, like particularly answer that question very well. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, I know that. But how hard is it to engineer a virus or an environment for it to have and sustained life at the end of the day? How hard is it to engineer a virus?
It requires a lot. It requires a lot of care. I mean, not all the labs in the country can do it. I mean, it needs a certain level of safety at the end, because viruses are much more infectious than bacteria. I mean, like if you're culturing a bacteria, you won't need a big sophisticated lab. But if you need a virus, you actually need a lot of care, because it it involves the personal handling it. I mean, you need to have the particular protective gear and all that, right? So like, I've just, as you know, I recently started working into the I've recently ventured into the field of virology, and I can actually see the difference. I mean, I've cultured cells before and I'm culturing cells now, and the differences in the lab setup, the level of biosafety is astronomical, right? And as far as how to maintain viruses goes, it's also a difficult and it's a difficult thing. You have to maintain the cells needed. Certain viruses are like they particularly enjoy a particular they have a specific taste for a cell, and certain cells, they kind of are resistant to a certain virus, right? So you need to have them listed out. I mean, like you need to have a detailed knowledge on what kind of cells you need to use, and how to culture those techniques, and at the same. So yeah, if you got those things figured out, I think culturing and engineering the viruses won't be a big deal. But it's easier said than done.
What's the most fascinating thing that you have actually heard of today about a virus? It can be anything, to be something which is more dangerous to a human being, or else it can be something which is for and for the safety of a human being. What is that most fascinating thing that you have heard about a virus?
Have you heard of this fact that there are a lot of frozen cryopreserved, like naturally cryopreserved virus under the Antarctic ice shelf?
No.
There were reports that said that there are certain viruses that, due to the global climate, have been like naturally cryopreserved under the ice shelf. And as global warming progresses, these ice shelves will melt, and like potentially new unsequenced or unknown viruses might leak into the or general population, leading to newer infections. So I think the I think the most fascinating thing about viruses is the fact that a single thing can potentially eradicate a large population in today's population. And knowing that there's something like an unknown virus out there that can be discovered anytime is kind of difficult. Example is COVID, this novel COVID-19. If you take it, like this virus was not even not even relevant to human beings like before 2019, right? I mean, this zoonotic jump, as they call it, that the jump bit from animals to humans, it's just a matter of mutation. Like a single mutation can lead to viruses taste changing from a normal animal to a human being, and it just takes a certain jump to just bring the entire society to a halt.
Yeah, I know. There are ways in which scientists have tried to demystify the functioning of a protein at the end of the day. It can be the function of what the protein is in a virus also. How difficult is it to figure out the function of a protein at the end of the day?
Well, what scientists currently do is they kind of figure out the sequence. Everything is about the sequence at first, right? I mean, like you don't want to start doing anything without knowing the sequence. So first, what scientists do is they figure out the sequence using the various techniques like mass spectroscopy and the genetic sequence. Then they go about learning about the structure by X-ray crystallography and other techniques like SDS page, right? Which shows you the molecular weight and etc. Then they go about like knocking it out, like they mutate the particular protein, or they kind of stop its expression totally in a whole cell organism or a single cell, and they kind of figure out the changes in the control and the knocked out. So they kind of what do we say, they compare between this like the differences between the control and the test subject, and see what was the differences, and they kind of figure out the function of the protein and the pro in the
No, I just wanted to ask you this one question. Will proteinomics help in getting the insights of the unsolved biological problems at the end of the day?
Definitely. I mean, I am mostly into the genomics aspect. I mean, like I am mostly involved in the genome, like the genomic base, because like the genome is at the end of the day is a manual, right, of life. Proteomics would be the next step. If I would say genome is the manual, the proteome is the workhorses. I mean, like everything in the human body is done by protein. You're perceiving light, it's a protein. You're moving, it's because of a protein, right? The reason that you're standing and your bones are intact is because of protein, the collagen and elastin. So I guess like if genome is the manual, I would say protein is the workhorses. And to understand anything, you have to know you should know how the workers are, right? I mean, like if you want to know, for example, take company. Like if you want to know the culture of the company, you have to learn about the workers. So, like in that analogy, the company is the organism and the culture is the protein. The workers are the protein. I mean, like you can't basically do anything without a protein knowing about it.
You know, that's the basic definition of what protein is all about. But I just wanted to get the demiological modeling of what this virus is all about. Epidemiological modeling of virus is something which is more important these days. There are ways in which these viruses can mutate also. Can you comment about these factors which actually gave rise to the mutation and everything? And also, you can comment about the COVID-2, the version 2 of the virus which we are seeing at the present world.
Normally, what happens is, sorry, the mutability of a virus is what you're talking about, right? So it's easy to
Yes.
it's important to understand that when viruses um, multiply, they multiply really fast, and when you kind of multiply, you have the risk of mutations too, right? As much you're multiplying. And evolution, evolution in the case, evolution itself is a human mutation at a controlled manner, right? I mean, like, necessary mutations keep carrying on from generation to generation until they stick and develop new features. So when it comes and see, now mutations are very difficult to come by in a multicellular organism, right? But it's easier when when it's in a single cell organism, especially in a virus, because viruses reproducibility is very fast. I mean, like, they reproduce really fast. So as and when these viruses reproduce, the chances of mutations increase, and the chances of as the chances of mutations increase, the chances of favorable mutations also increase. So let's say the virus has replicated 1,000 times, all right? And let's say a certain batch of these viruses have a particular mutation that helps it to penetrate a different population of an organism. So as these mutate, a different it starts propagating the new population, and as it populates a new population, it again develops new mutations that penetrate the new ones. So that's why you get these cases in COVID-19 that it says that this novel strain in UK is more infectious, right? Because these mutations favor the viruses, they favor its infectability, right? Because at the end of the day, evolution will guide the virus in making sure that it develops more progeny and it survivability. So yeah, the epidemiology of virus is in its genomics and how it reproduces.
When you speak of new technologies like Neuralink and AlphaFold 2 come into the picture at the end of the day.
Okay, yeah,
What do you,
yeah, yeah. I've heard a lot about these.
what do you feel about these technologies? Will they really revolutionize the way in which human beings are living today?
I would definitely say it's a start. I mean, like, I have always been a fan of Elon Musk. I mean, like, I've been following him for a long time. I mean, the ideas that he presents, it's very crazy. I mean, like, when, for example, when he started SpaceX, right? People like Buzz Aldrin himself criticized his ideas of a commercial space flight. The thing is that he doesn't let these things kind of bog him down. I mean, he keeps continuing on his path. I do think biology and computation, biology is coming at a head still. I mean, like, they are going to be, like, fields that you necessarily need to learn. I mean, nowadays, like, you can't do anything without computers. Let's face it, you can't do anything without computers. I mean, whether it comes to data analysis, you need computers. When it comes to statistics, you need computers. And for example, like, let's take the human genome project of like, as a case study. It's a huge data set. It's a huge data set. Like, some people say it's like around 3 petabytes of data. Some people say it's like it's just 3 GB. It's debatable. But what stands true, it's huge. And it's not possible for a human being to sit and like study all these on its own. So, like, I'm with advent of this computational technologies, what it does is, with deep learning, let's say big data, it takes uh, it can study a huge machine using machine learning, you can feed it a lot of biological data, and it can easily tell you and predict, like, yeah. I hope that's a satisfactory answer.
Yeah, it was good. But like there are ways in which people have said viruses are not just leaving, they're just moving from a host to host. What do you feel? Are they alive?
Viruses are certain things that they're neither alive nor dead. I mean, this is something that everyone learns in their biological textbooks, right? Outside the body, they're just dormant. They're just like particles of dust. I mean, like, they're just floating around the atmosphere. They don't actually. uh, have any innate metabolism inside them to call them living. But once you inhale them or consume them through a like food, it becomes active because now it can penetrate the human cells. So yes, I would agree with that statement. Like like viruses are not going to just go away. I mean, they're just going to be like floating around until they find a new host.
Yeah, there are ways in which expert systems have failed in these kind of
Common cold, I
building
mean,
blocks. Yeah.
best known example. I mean, there's no cure for common cold. Yeah, I mean, the only only treatment for common cold is let it run its course. I mean, like you'll get better in 7 days. Yeah,
You know,
but yeah. Then again, in the common cold, it's the genetic variability, right? Different strains and everything. It's the variability that leads to the difficulty in sequencing it and finding a cure.
I just wanted to ask you this one question. Will AI help in engineering most deadly viruses?
I think that's a very science fiction kind of thing. I guess with this, and if you take it as theoretically, yes, theoretically it should be able to develop the ideal virus. I mean, like you give it like you feed an AI with a lot of data considering the mRNA of a particular virus. Like you keep giving it the like, for example, let's say you feed an AI on the genetic data of various viruses like HIV, common cold, and you say you particularly design a particular algorithm that like says that you combine these genome in a certain particular way to develop, let's say, a virus that is kind of unbeatable. Theoretically, it is possible, right? But it's difficult because you also need a human factor, and AI can't build a virus on its own. You need to know these techniques. I mean, like you need to have the human touch too.
No.
Maybe the AI maybe the AI will tell you the ideal virus. I mean, like let's say, okay, if an ideal virus were to exist, it would have these, it would have a genome that resembles something like this. Yeah, and whether
Oh,
saying if it's naturally possible or not, that's a different story. I mean, like it might not be like feasible on a biological scale, right? Let's say maybe this genome is not compatible in a biological setup. It might not produce the proteins that are necessary, like but yeah, theoretically at a theoretical standpoint and a plain hypothetical standpoint, yes, AI should be able to do that.
no, I just wanted to ask you this one question because you talked a lot about Neuralink, which was done by the Elon Musk, then AlphaFold 2. You
Yeah.
also commented about these. But I just wanted to ask you this question where is just human genome just refers about just storing the information which was genetically transferred, or else is it something else? Are we still yet to understand the potential of what an human genome is all about? What do you feel about it?
We are currently using that knowledge as it is, right? I mean, in today's world, as I said, we are using it to diagnose various genetic mutations. I've worked with hemoglobinopathies. I've worked with sickle spinal muscular atrophy. The entire reason we know these diseases exist because we have some knowledge on the human genome on its own, right? And we have a particular reference point saying that there is at this position there is this change causes this disease. It's very important. So uh, it's led a lot of parental clinics to plan children. I mean, like to plan their pregnancies when and if they know that their children might have these certain diseases in them. So yeah, human genome project is not just an idea. It's something that it's being implemented today, and in the future it might have better applications as well. I mean, it won't be just to just to say that this point mutation exists here. It might it might hold a key in fighting the certain diseases that are untreatable right now, like cancer, Alzheimer's. These diseases might change from a manageable disease to a treatable disease because of this data being collected.
Yeah, there are ways in which computer system also have given false results. Here and there, people have already given the proofs for it. But I want to ask you this one question: why are still people relying on computers at the end of the day? And also, what do you feel about the algorithms these days? Are they sturdy enough to just run on these kind of menial hardware which we have built today? Also, is there anything called as a specific purpose hardware which is required for these algorithms?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like it depends on the amount of data you handle. I mean, for example, if you're handling the entire human genome, you need a lot of processing space, right? So there are like special computers out there that deal with these things. I mean, like it's basically got to do with processing power. And as far as wrong data is concerned, I don't think it's a computer issue. It's mostly an interpretation issue. I mean, that can be a human, yeah, that can be a human origin or something. Like, yeah. And as far as data analysis goes, it's an entirely subjective art, right? I mean, it's got to do with a lot of things like bias and a lot of things, bias, uh, data selection, data sets. So I wouldn't say it's a computer culpable thing, and it's a growing art. It'll only get better as the technology increases.
Yeah, there are ways in which human are trying to survive. Whether it can be vaccines, whether it can be a new tablet which can be come out into the
Mm.
world to just solve this present issue of COVID. According to you, who is the biggest survivor? Is it a human or an virus at the end of the day?
Uh, I guess we're all viruses. I mean, like evolution, like as you can see, right? I mean, like the entire history of humans have been littered with pandemics. Take it the plague, the bubonic plague, then the SARS outbreak in 2003. There's always that, like just removed an entire population from the face of the earth. But we're still here. I mean, yeah, I would say like uh, there'll be a lot of pandemics. There'll be a lot of human casualties, and there'll be a lot of vaccines. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about coexisting. I mean, like viruses will always find a way to mutate, and viruses will always find a way to penetrate a population, and the population will always find a way to survive. So I guess it's a bit of like a tug of war kind of a deal. I mean, both of them, just learning to coexist, albeit in a very violent way. But
I just wanted to ask you this one question. What do you feel about the software these days? Because you are a self-taught programmer now at the end of the day. You have taught yourself how to program to one extent, at least not to an extent where you can really write a software for a system, but at
oh
least
no, no,
you
no.
are learning
Yeah, yeah,
Python.
a long way from that, but hopefully I'll
Yeah,
be that
yeah,
level.
yeah. What do you feel about the software today for biotechnology and proteinomics for the biology at the end of the day? Are these softwares good enough to run all the simulations which they are running at the end of the day to
Uh,
just get that optimal solution, to just reach that optimal solution?
I mean, there are a lot of supercomputers that are dealing with it. I can only comment on like day-to-day scientists like us. Yeah, I mean, like who don't have access to those kind of technology. I would say like there are a lot of good databases that you can learn from, and these databases are of course evolving all the time as and when the human knowledge base is growing on its own, right? So I guess, yeah, I would say it's much better than what it was 10 years ago, but it's not as good as it can be to 10 years ago. I mean, as in when we can learn new things. But for a purely like a person who's just learning these things and trying to implement them in their daily experiments, right? I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
You know, last question at the end. You have actually demystified a lot, because it's just a basic intro what I really wanted, and you actually gave that. And I was very happy when I was conducting the podcast. It was pretty cool, because I'm at least demystify something new from you at the end of the day on the proteinomics aspects and the
I think
genomics
you're being too
aspects from
nice.
an.
Yeah, I think I've I wasn't
No,
able
no,
to
no, no, no.
like answer a
No,
lot
no,
of
no,
things.
no. You actually threw light on whatever which was actually required. And actually you actually gave something which was more required for the beginning of what this field is all about. It was pretty good. But I just want to ask you this one question. How intelligent is a protein? We have seen isoforms of the protein at the end of the day. We have seen viruses have been being getting stronger just by being on the medium of the protein at the end of the day. How intelligent is a protein now?
Uh, as I said like earlier, right? A protein does everything in the body. I mean, it has its structure is not just its amino acid sequence, right? Unlike a genome, you just have to know the sequence, right? But for a protein, you have to know the amino acids, and you have to know how these amino acids interact with each other to fold, and uh, and certain structures lead to different functions. So I would say a protein again. I would say the protein is a great workhorse. I mean, like everything a human does is directly or indirectly linked to a protein. So I would say a protein is very intelligent. And without it, I think we are lost. I mean, not lost. I would say like we won't be functioning without a protein.
No. I just want you to give some recommendations to the books, if possible. Some books which they are supposed to read when they are just entering this field of virology. Any books, or else it can be genomics, proteinomics, or for the genomic sequencing, anything. You can just give any recommendation of the books which people are supposed to read.
Well, there are pretty good books. Like when it comes to genomics, you have this Newstad. There's a book called Introduction to Genetics by Newstad, and then there are a lot of books on virology as well. There was a certain book. I don't remember the name. It's
I
Introduction to
think you can
Virology, I guess.
I
Introduction to
think you can
Virology.
just share it to me in the LinkedIn so that I can
Sure,
put
sure,
the
sure.
overlay here.
Sure. I'll be able to do that. I'll do that. I'll make sure I give a list of resources for you.
Thank you so much, sir. Manan, sir, thank you so much for this amazing podcast. And I think probably if it doesn't give you an in-depth definition of what everything was all about, but at least you gave an overview of what this technology can be and could have been for the people. And thank you so much for this podcast, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me. At the end of the day, I am also a person who's just venturing into computational biology, right? Most of my knowledge comes from the domain aspect, as in like the cell culture and like the biological aspect. Now I need to, unlock the other part of it, which I'm currently doing, and I highly recommend people to do it because, believe it or not, computers are the future of biology.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.